Hello, today I wanted to have a quick chat about 1.4 aperture lenses. Most of us out there aspire to get the most expensive f1.4 lenses, in some cases even f1.2, but do you really need them? This is a AIS 50mm f1.4. This is a beautiful lens, does let in a lot of light, but what really is the difference between this and a 1.8 or even an f2? It's a discussion that goes on and on and on. If you look through YouTube, people get so opinionated about it, even to the point where they start slandering each other's opinions in other videos. But really, I bought this a long time ago to go with my f3, and I've got the D version. Well, actually it's the pre-D version, the AF 1.4, and this is also, again, 50mm f1.4. I do love this lens, it's very, very good. But, you know, when you're actually using them, what's the difference between a 1.8 and a 1.4? For that extra half a stop, that's all it is, half a stop, you have so much extra weight and so much extra expense, and many people buy these lenses and then stock them down a bit. Well, if you're going to buy a lens and start using it at f2.8, there really is no need to have gone for a 1.4 in the first place. Okay, if you need it in low light, you can go half a stop more than a 1.8, one stop more than a f2. In this day and age, with the low light performance of cameras, it really doesn't make much difference. For those of us who broke our bones with film, you know, 400 ASA, 800, 1600 was really pushing it, and there used to be a 3200, which was like taking photos through sandpaper at that time, but it was creative in its own way. No comparison to what you can do nowadays. Now this one, for example, is the 1.8G. This is for DX camera size. They also make a 1.8G that is designed for full frame, which is significantly more, and they make a 1.4 35mm G, which is even more expensive, a lot more. Really, yes, you could argue that the 1.4 lenses are made for professional use, to a higher quality, better image quality, and if you want the best, that's what you will go for. If we're nitpicking, okay, yes. But let's look at optical performance first. The difference between this and the most expensive one, nobody, and I mean nobody, would know the difference looking at a completed image. Nobody. Even if you were to take two images side by side, you would literally have to blow them up to 200-300% and look closely, and then maybe you might find a small difference. In other words, this lens will go 95-98% for £150 of what a lens several times the price will go. For a professional, when it's a business expense, why not buy whatever's available? But if you are buying to a budget, then it's not really worth it. Now, with the older lenses like this one with the 50mm 1.4 AF, okay, you can buy these used. There's not a great deal of difference, but still, you can buy the 1.8D brand new now for £80, and yes, image quality on that is not quite as good as this, but again, not enough to be noticeable. And on the later lenses like this one, then this one is better than this one, even though this is a 1.4. And on the 35mm 1.8G, on this series, they also make a 50mm 1.8G and a 50mm 1.4G, and I think nearly everybody would agree the 1.8G actually has slightly better image quality. and that seems to be replicated in the 85mm 1.8G and 1.4G. The 1.4 giving you half a stop more light and the slightly shallower depth of field that would go with it, but it is negligible. There again, on one of the other lenses that I've reviewed, that's the Minolta 58mm 1.4. I bought that to use on my Sony a6000 with an adapter. Now, I bought that lens for creative purposes. I wanted a very fast lens that was in excess of the 50, that gave a field of view closer to the 80-85mm. And I really love that lens for portraits. It's not the sharpest lens, these walk all over it, but I don't care, that's not what I want. I bought it for the character, for the creativity, and for the rendering of its skin tones and the rendering of the bokeh, which is beautiful. For that purpose, perfect. The same could be said for an 85mm. Depends what you are buying it for. But if you're just buying it just for that extra bit of light or that extra image quality, it is negligible. The build quality, to be honest, that's gone out the window now. These older lenses, these AIS lenses, now these were built to a specification, high quality build. They're 40, 50 years old, and there's thousands of them out there, and they are still as buttery smooth as they ever were. Fantastic. These, the early AF lenses, not too bad, but not as good as the AIS lenses, but still better build than these later plastic fantastic that they sell now. I mean, Nikon make a 58mm 1.4G that's well over £1,000. To be honest, I really don't see the purpose of it. It's the same build quality as this. It's just a piece of plastic, a slightly larger piece of glass in it, as far as I'm concerned. So no, to be honest, as long as you have a good quality lens, and most of them are, most of these primes are very good, the 35s, the 50s, the 85s, whether you get the 85D, 1.8D, 1.4D, 1.8G, 1.4G, they're all very, very, very good. But really, do you need, if you're buying the 50, 1.8G, it's about £150. The 1.4G is about £350. If you're a professional, fine. But if you're buying it purely because you're a gear whore, you are really wasting your money, because it's not going to show in your final shots. At the end of the day, as long as the quality of the lenses are good, and all of these are good, then it's down to light and your creativity. Really, really is, because the lenses are all very good. The margin of difference is not anything you would notice unless you really, really were to look closely, zoomed in, like for like. You would never ever notice it on a printed image on a wall of any size. If you're doing something that has clearly defined lines, like architecture, then there are some lenses that do have pin cushioning or whatever that could affect it. But even then, nowadays with digital, as soon as it goes into Lightroom, you click the correction, it's all done. So really, most of the marginal errors are corrected as soon as you go into Lightroom. So all we're left with really is, does the lens suffer from any extreme softness, maybe around the edges? And most of the primes are pretty good, and if anything, it is the 1.4 aperture lenses that tend to be softer at the edges than the 1.8 or f2 lenses. Nikon makes some beautiful AIS lenses. They make an 85mm f2, which is not really much longer than this, a bit wider, and the image quality from that is fantastic. They also make 105mm f2.5, which is one of the best lenses ever. That was the lens that was credited with the image of the Afghan girl that went into the National Geographic magazine. And thanks to a certain angry photographer on YouTube, popularity of that lens has actually gone through the roof, as has the price. So realistically, buy a lens for the quality and for what you need it for. Prime lenses always win. Zoom lenses offer convenience. It's handy to have a standard zoom, of course, or a longer zoom, depending what you need it for, but you can't beat prime lenses, and you don't have to go and buy mega expensive ones. These ones are good. Even the 35mm f2D is also very good. Nikon make a 24mm f2.8 and a 20mm f2.8. They're not brilliant at the edges, especially wide open, but then that's not the kind of aperture focal range that you would want to be shooting necessarily wide open. Still very, very good. So realistically, buy for what you need. Don't get sucked into the being a gear nerd and just looking at specs again and again and again and paying out 3 or 4 times what you need to, because it is wasted money. It's nice to have a choice of lenses, different lenses from different eras that give you different effects. They can all be creative in their own way. They all do a wonderful job, and you don't need to pay a fortune for them. And some of the old Nikon manual lenses, and the Canon and Pentax and Minolta and Olympus, there's some fantastic lenses out there that you can get for next to nothing. Obviously the manual focus lenses are not the kind of lenses you'd use necessarily for run and gun people photography. They're too slow as compared to what we've got used to with autofocus, but for anything that you can take a bit of time and be creative over, I'd highly recommend them. So yeah, if it's between 1.4 and 1.8 or f2, really, it's not a big deal, and certainly not worth paying 2 or 3 times the price for, unless you're not worried about the money. If it's coming out of a budget, written off against tax, and you're buying the best, you're in the business, why wouldn't you? But if you're spending the wife's housekeeping, there's better things you can do with it. Okay, back soon. Bye.